Welcome back to the Cheese Boy channel. Today we are talking about the best DC comic story trade paperbacks that you can pick up and read. Anybody who's just kind of getting into DC, or anybody who's newer to DC, old fan. These are just over the years, these are my favorite storylines collected into books, and I feel like you can't go wrong with any of these. Identity Crisis was a great storyline. It was a kind of a murder mystery, and I thought it was a really well done story. Really like sucked you in. And they're usually not super into like a murder mystery kind of thing, because it's a little bit less superpowery and a little bit less, all the fights and stuff like that. It's more about the story. But I thought this was fantastic book. Of course, you can't have a list like this without having some Batman stories, and there is a ton of Batman stories to pick from. But one of the ones that I really enjoyed was The Hush. It was Jim Lee's story. It must have been about 2006 it came out. But I thought it was really great. The art really drew me in on it. Jim Lee is just an absolutely fantastic artist. Everything he does is good, but I think he does Batman better than he does anything else, and he does Batman better than just about anybody else out there drawing. But I thought it was a really great storyline. It was kind of like the return of Jason Todd to the storyline, who had been dead. He had been killed by the Joker way back in Death in the Family, which is another great story. But I thought Hush was really well done. It did a great job of kind of bringing in a bunch of different bad guys into the storyline. So I think that is definitely a Batman recommendation. Of course, if you've been watching like the CW Arrowverse, they did their version of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they really did a pretty good job bringing in a bunch of different things. But the comic on that was one of the first real big multi issue crossovers that I ever read. I always thought that was just a fantastic storyline. I believe it was like 12 parts originally. In recent years, another Batman story, because so much Batman is good, but I really enjoyed White Knight. It was kind of a different telling of the Batman story. It was Joker kind of playing the hero and convincing the world that he's a criminal and he should be punished, but it's really Batman who made him this super villain, and Batman's the one who's really pushing, breaking the law and pushing the envelope, and it's not him, and he's just a regular old bad guy, and really does a interesting job turning the world against Batman, but it's got Harley in it, and it is just a really interesting take on like that alternate world Batman story, and I love that kind of stuff. I really like the alternate world stuff. You'll see as we get a little bit farther up this list, but definitely White Knight, check that out. I've been a comic collector for a long time, and I was never really a Green Lantern fan. But maybe in the last 15 years, they've put out two really great Green Lantern storylines. They did the Sinestro War, the Sinestro Corps War, and that was really, it really brought me into reading Green Lantern. It's definitely, if you don't know much about Green Lantern, if you you haven't been a fan, I feel like that's the book that's going to change your mind, that's going to make you enjoy Green Lantern. It was just a great. Sinestro is his arch nemesis from way before anything. But it's great to see him as the key bad guy in this. So it's definitely like a recommend. And then on the Green Lantern line, we have Blackest Night, which is the creation of the Black Ring, which is kind of like the Death Ring. They create a bunch of different colored rings for like the different emotions, but it is a way to bring Green Lantern and then the whole Justice League and everything into this amazing crossover. There's a bunch of like big crossovers, both Marvel and DC, that there's a storyline and then it also affects like everything else that's kind of going around, all the close tie-in comics. This one, they've got like Green Lantern Corps, and stuff like that, and so it expands on that quite a bit. So there's a main storyline, but then there's like 3 trades through the other Green Lantern titles that all just read the main storyline first, but then those other ones are just, if you liked it, pick them up because they're just fantastic as well. Flashpoint. That's another one that you certainly will be familiar with if you've been watching the Arrowverse. Flashpoint is there was a whole season on it, and then it has continued to carry into multiple further seasons. If you are a fan of the live action movies, they've definitely hinted at that being a lead into with the Flash kind of showing up, and the Batman alternate universe kind of thing. Definitely, they're leading into a Flashpoint kind of scenario, but it's basically Flash changes something in the past, and it has a ripple effect that changes everything. This one kind of tied into like every single DC comic. It was probably the widest spread crossover that I had seen up to this time, and a lot of those stories are really good. If you really like the Flashpoint storyline, the one definite pickup is the Batman storyline. It's the introduction of Thomas Wayne, Batman's dad, and that is a very interesting take, like the alternate universe kind of thing. A very interesting take on that as well. I really enjoyed that. This is definitely a number 2, and then the Superman is pretty good as well. Definitely a change off of Superman, but definitely pick up Flashpoint because that is one of the greatest storylines that they've done through DC. And now we get to my top 2 very favorite DC storylines I've ever read, and both of them are kind of like an alternate world thing. The first one is Superman Red Sun. It is basically the telling of what would happen if Superman landed in Soviet Russia instead of the United States, and was raised by a communist family and then used by the Russian government. Super fantastic, just imaginative, creative storyline. Mark Millar is the artist or the writer on this one, and everything he does I am a fan of, and you'll certainly hear about him in a couple weeks when we do the Marvel version of this, but definitely must read. And then, my very favorite DC storyline ever was Kingdom Come. Alex Ross story. It is just fantastic. It is kind of like in the future, the Justice League is like, hey, we're old and we want to retire, and all of our kids and the next generation have superpowers. So of course that they can take over, and they can be the take over the Justice League and have it be the ongoing superpower that keeps humanity safe. And then they kind of just flub it up, and the old folk need to come down and teach the young ones a little bit of respect. Just amazing. It is fantastic art. It's like Alex Ross's like painting. The thing probably took him a year just to put together. It's a great story. It just absolutely my favorite DC story. Oh man, ran through that as quick as I could because I don't want to waste a lot of your time. But if I missed anything, put it in the comments down below. I know there's a bunch of Batman stories of Dark Knight and where he gets his back broken by Bane and Contagion and Year One and stuff like that. But if there's anything odd that I've missed, put it in the comments. Let me know what's your favorite. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I've got, and then like and share and appease the YouTube algorithm, because it doesn't hurt you to like, but it helps me, because that way I can share this stuff with more people. Thank you guys very much for stopping by and giving me a few minutes of your time. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something, and I hope I have suggested something that you will enjoy. You guys have a good one.
This real life catastrophe, I'd rather live in an RPG, creating who I want and how I want to be. There'd be no rent or power bills, I'd just go out and hone my skills, defeating enemies for gold and XP.